kind of breakdown that has occurred in society, which I have observed, is that in the course of exchange, individuals don't care about the accuracy of the positions that they argue for. What individuals are seeking is for a narrative that gives them polemical leverage or power. And they're inspired by this narrative once they find it because it empowers their voice. It's understandable that humans would be psychologically motivated by this kind of thing because it gives them the feeling of having significance. The way this occurs is that when individuals are engaged in discourse, the argumentation structure that a person wields is largely predicated on whether or not that narrative empowers them toward the proclamation of principles, values, premises that make them feel powerful, that make them feel significant, narratives that give them the power to refute, to crush, to feel strong within the context of discourse. I see this happening over and over again. When I'm engaged in discourse with people, I try to be conscious and aware of this. And so if a side issue is brought up, if the discourse collapses into the domain of a red herring, an argument of irrelevance, I try to ignore the lesser point. In other words, if I see a place where a person has made a mistake, I'm not going to simply monopolize on that mistake because I can, and it will make me feel good or make me feel powerful. I am going to try to focus in on what's relevant. That's the thing that matters, to stick to the topic, to focus on the issue at hand. But that's not what's taking place in contemporary discourse. What's taking place is that individuals are seeking out power narratives. They want a narrative that gives them leverage, rational kind of power, a polemical kind of power within the context of discourse. So they want talking points that are difficult for their opponents to deal with. And if they have those talking points and they can utilize those talking points, they feel content. They don't have any concern to look deeper into those premises to find out whether or not they're true. They don't care whether or not those premises accurately represent reality. The only thing they care about is the power factor that those premises or that narrative has. The power factor meaning I can wield a set of assertions against you, or you can wield a set of assertions against me that allow me to get the upper hand or allow me to get leverage within the discourse, so that those who are observing the discourse see me as the strong man, see me as the individual who has the rational power or the evidential power or the narrative power. I believe that this defect is occurring at the subconscious level. Humans are not aware that they are seeking out these power narratives for this purpose. They're just naturally doing it. So if we find an extremist within any particular field, be it a field of racial supremacy, be it a field of religious supremacy, at the heart of this psychology lies this drive and this need for these power narratives. What individuals are drawn to is not the particular religion, but the fact that that religion gave the individual a power, a narrative they could wield against other human beings. So they're seeking out the significance of this power because of what it makes them feel psychologically. It makes them feel superior. It makes them feel significant for the first time. And if they're seeking out as well an ethnic narrative, the reason they're seeking out this ethnic narrative is for the same reason. The point is that the narrative is not as important as the power actions are the power that is attached to it. That's the crucial thing. So it's possible to have a narrative that is accurate but lacking in power, and that narrative would not be attractive to this personality type, this psychological personality type. Because this personality type, this extremist, this radical personality type wants a narrative of power. They want strong closure. Strong authority is what they're seeking. They want to be in a position of authority. They want to occupy a place of authority. And they're seeking out narratives that allow them to partake in this, to be practitioners, to occupy this place of authority. If the narrative of truth, if the reality of truth, if truth itself, if reality does not offer this to this type of personality type, this type of personality type isn't interested in it because there's no polemical power attached to it. They want the act to be able to assault with their narrative, to be strong with their narrative. And unfortunately, this leads to a decline in the quality of rational discourse within the context of society. We are seeing this become more and more prevalent. And what's important as thinkers is that we exist beyond our psychology. What does that mean? That means that if we have this particular personality type, this extremist, radicalized personality type, this personality type that requires and craves strong closure, certainty, then it means we become aware of this and that we don't allow this psychology to drive our content. That we don't allow this psychology to drive our pursuits. That we in fact seek out truth, even if that truth does not contain a function of power. That's the important thing, that we are beyond this psychological structure, that we are not captivated to it, but that we stand in a meta position to it. That means we're aware of it and we try to curb it so that we don't fall into it. That's what I do when I'm engaged in discourse with individuals and I see mistakes that were made or places where I could attack and it would be strong and I would win and it would feel good, but I let that go. I let it go because it's not going to bring unity to the discourse. It's not going to bring community to the discourse. And it's not going to advance the discourse. And it is not focused on the more important topic at hand. It's simply focused on feeling this act of power, the gratification of being the stronger player in this discourse game. We need to get beyond that, which means first we need to see it, and after we see it, we need to try to bring it into check by realizing that it's not impressive to be captivated by a narrative that could be interchanged with another narrative of power. What that means is that if we are a radical religionist, are a radical ethnic individual, that either one of these could have been the narrative that captivated us, that pulled us into it as true believers. See, that's the problem. So we're not actually pulled into these narratives because of truth content, because of something qualitative within the narrative. We're pulled into the narrative because it corresponds to and appeases the cravings of our personality, cravings for authority. Now, I don't think there's anything wrong, in a certain sense, with wanting to be authoritative. The problem is that when that desire for authoritative disposition is linked up to an individual's identity or to a person's understanding of meaning, to their act of signification, social signification. An individual that's in a position of authority should not want to lord over people, should not want to bully people, should not want to command people, not dominate people, but they should want to emancipate people. They should want to help people. They should want to increase communicative unity. We should not want to dominate over other human beings with authority. If we have authority in knowledge, it really means that we have more social responsibility to help people be emancipated, to help people see the truth, to help people see their way out of error. So, at the heart of this disastrous psychology lies this insecure craving for power. And the insecure craving for power simply wants a narrative of power by which it can function in the world because it makes it feel superior. It meets that need for authority. I want to be the great authoritative person that everybody looks up to, that everybody listens to, and I will take any narrative that gives me that. This is going to completely impoverish any individual who takes on this disposition subconsciously, because it means the narratives that they will buy into will be emotionally anchored into their psychological structure. It means that these individuals will not actually have narratives that are established through a kind of evidential or rational competence. They simply have a narrative that might have a rhetorical flair to it, a rhetorical kind of appeal to it that tricks the individual psychology, making the person think that they have achieved a status of signification when in fact the narrative has alienated them and impoverished their social communicatory power. This is a problem. Reality is actually the most powerful thing because it can't be refuted by rhetoric. It can't be dislodged by propaganda. It still remains. It can, of course, be disrupted by it. It can be mischaracterized by it. It can be sidestepped by it. There's all kinds of things that rhetoric and propaganda can do to deviate from what's true. But truth has an inherent power by the very fact that it's true. It becomes necessary. It's inescapable in this sense. So the great danger is this subconscious drive for authoritarianism. We need to get beyond this psychology. Instead of being driven by this psychology, we need to get to the point where we are thinking rationally counter to it. And if the authoritarian personality really wants power, then they're not going to get it by looking for a power narrative. They're going to get it by being Socratic within the formation of their discourse, meaning that they are looking for and seeking to know what is true. They're open to seeking what is true. And this is so vitally crucial if we want to go down a path of authentic and legitimate power.